joining us on set to talk about, you're going to talk about the leadership on both sides of this labor dispute. You're here to talk about happiness.
I'm always here to talk about happiness.
Arthur Brooks is President Emeritus at the American Enterprise Institute and professor at Harvard University. Has a new book, Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. And it's not like Will Smith, Happy. And this is, you spell it correctly, with an I. Okay. Co-authored with Oprah Winfrey. What I want to talk about, I guess, is whether, after all these years, has your notion of what makes for a happy life changed? Isn't it about earned success? And to bring it back to GM and Ford and the UAW, isn't that what these workers are trying to do? Earn their own success to fit in with this world in the best way they can?
That's what everybody wants. I mean, look,
is that still what happiness is to you? Or have you changed it?
No, not at all. But what we want is to be happier as people, and that means progress throughout our lives. We want to make moral progress. We want to have better relationships. We want to create value with our lives and with our work. These are the things that we want. And we talk about the science in this book, but a lot of it comes down to common sense. When you see something like what's going on with the UAW strike, I mean, it's perfectly easy to understand. I mean, these workers are looking at their next door neighbor got a raise last year because they don't work under collective bargaining agreements, and they can't afford groceries. So of course they're doing the natural thing, and this is what we're going to see until we have actual decent policy that gets inflation under control, frankly.
The other question that I was going to ask you was, can we get happier with the proliferation of social media and the way it is right now? Has that helped? For my son, it has definitely helped. I don't know what he would have done if you didn't have this to do all the time. And you can enrich, you can find out everything. You have an Encyclopedia Britannica on your phone, basically, and everything. But is it, bottom line, is it making us happier or less happy?
For most of us, no. That's the answer. And we talk about this a lot in the book because we're looking at the brain science, the neuroscience, and social science of happiness, and it's basically, this book is an owner's manual for your emotions. And the interesting thing, the reason we wrote it is I teach this class at the Harvard Business School on happiness, and my students say, look, I can manage money, I can manage a company, but I can't manage my feelings. And the reason is because we don't understand the way our emotions work, and until we can treat our emotions with the same seriousness that people do in their business lives. Look, every good CEO is watching us today, and a lot of them feel very much in control of their companies and very much not in control of their own emotions, and that's actually what we're trying to turn around. Same kind of business.
Is the tribalism, I mean, we can't get away from the political and cultural tribalism I guess that's exacerbated by social media.
Absolutely.
Right?
Look, this is
But the players involved aren't helping. I mean, we know how Donald Trump liked, I don't know, there were media organizations that calculated 14,200 lies or something. Look, Joe Biden is no slouch in the at least distorting, or maybe he doesn't even know a lot of it. But our politicians are making things worse.
Yeah, well, we have a culture right now of polarization, largely because we're rewarding what psychologists call dark triad personalities. You know what that is? Say that again. Dark triad personalities. So dark triad personalities are people who combine narcissism, Machiavellianism, and traits of psychopathy. So narcissism is, it's all about me. Machiavellianism is, I'm willing to hurt you.
Do anything to get
and traits of psychopathy means basically I have no empathy and no conscience. And we're rewarding people like this. Look, you get what you pay for. And when we fire up a lot of elements in the media and all of the elements of the political structure all around us, and we reward bullies and people who actually don't have any conscience, guess what we're going to get?
This is all making me unhappy.
Well, you know what? We can actually turn this around. The reason that I'm actually working right now to try to create a happiness movement in this country is not because you need better whiz-bang ideas about public policy, but because you need people to realize that happiness is under their control in their lives, and they need to demand it in the people who represent them.
So we talked about this a little bit. I saw him earlier this week. And this idea that everybody increasingly, especially in a social media world, craves external validation. Right? People talk about, can you get validation from yourself, or do you actually need validation from
Got a lot of likes on our discussion yesterday.
From everybody else. Do you need that validation from everybody else?
Right.
You talked about friends and family, and that being a huge component of actually your own happiness.
Yeah.
Is there anything, is there even a thing called internal validation, or is all validation ultimately external. And if that's true, what does that mean?
Well, the truth is
because that goes to all of these things you're talking about.
Yeah. But the problem that we have, you talked about social media, our world is full of mirrors at this point. And if you can actually get away from it, one of the things that we recommend in the book, and I recommend to my students at Harvard, is that they go through days, at least hours, without the mirrors in their lives so they can observe the outside world. If you want to be happier, you got to be in what psychologists call the I self, looking out at the world without so much judgment of yourself. The problem is notifications on your phone are a mirror. It's interesting. You know, I was talking to a guy when I was preparing this book, when I was writing this book. He was a fitness influencer. It's like his shirt off on Instagram.
I do that.
Yeah, I know you do that. I know that's like, you go under an assumed name. I know what's going on.
Right. I'm what you don't want to do. Yeah.
And he said that he didn't eat anything he wanted for 10 years. He was completely miserable. So here's what he decided to do. He took every mirror out of his house and showered in the dark for a year so he couldn't see his own abs, and he finally got happy. He finally actually found the secret of happiness by not looking at himself anymore. That's the secret, is look out at the world in a sense of awe.
It's also where you point out in the book that we are trained to really, all the way back to caveman times, we are trained to look at negativity, that has been a survival technique.
Right.
I think it still is to a certain extent in some pretty mean industries.
Yeah.
But being grateful can take you out of that and working really hard on that. You have a really good I've been working hard on trying to be more grateful with things, but you have a good exercise for how people
we have a gratitude list exercise that we put in the book that's based on a lot of psychological research. And the research is not that important because actually just the habits work on this. You're right. We have a negativity bias. We go through life saying this is bad, not because we're negative people, but because in the Pleistocene era, if you didn't pay attention to the negative, something really bad would happen to you. So we have literally more brain space dedicated to negative than positive events, but that's maladapted. I mean, look at us. Look at the people watching us. We live in the greatest country, most charitable, upwardly mobile place in the history of the world. And we're like, look at the news. It's so...
I know, but a lot of people watching us work in industries where you are going to get knifed in the back by a cop.
No, I get it, but their lives, for the most part, are so much better than they are bad. And so your point is this, and what we talk about in the book is literally write down, bring to your prefrontal cortex the things for which you're grateful. That's emotional substitution. When you feel resentment, choose gratitude, and it actually works. And we have an exercise where you write down the 5 things you're most grateful for on Sundays, review the list, update the list every week. After 10 weeks, you'll be 25% happier. It actually works.
How are you doing on your own happiness?
Well, I'm on book tour right now, so happiness is also related to sleep, and so that's not going so great.
Yeah, but
the truth is,
you're happy.
I'm a very lucky guy.
Yeah.
What's that?
You've been happy for years.
Yeah, well, I've gotten happier and happier the more I've studied happiness. The secret to happiness is actually teaching it. I dedicated my career as a social scientist to the study of happiness because I wanted to get happier. I wasn't happy enough. It's like I've gotten 60% happier.
How do you know you've gotten 60% happier?
I tested, because we actually have validated tests. And the book website actually has tests that people can take
I know you can do
of their own moods. And I have to take them every semester because I'm teaching this at the university. And I look at my own progress. 60% happier. It's
From
amazing.
when to when? What did you, and what were the...
From 2019, when I stepped down from the American Enterprise Institute, until now.
So was AI making you unhappy?
I would say that I wasn't working as assiduously as I should have on my own happiness, like a lot of chief executives who are watching us today are not and could be.
I'm very happy, but then I think about people that aren't happy. It's neurotransmitter mediated, and many times it has nothing to do with what you can control. And you know that.
Well, you can manage your neurotransmitters in a big way, and the best way, getting back to what we were talking about before, is number one is it's responsible use of social media. One of the biggest things that people do wrong is they hit the social media again and again and again. It's basically, we're like methamphetamine addicts because it's actually working on the same brain circuits.
How do lonely people, see, I'm not lonely.
Right.
And if I was, and God
you
knows,
lonely during
you could be
COVID?
at any time. No, never. There are times, and I hate to admit it, but there are times where the family unit was so cohesive that we actually think back on those days and think those were pretty good
kind of a
days.
sentimentality about it, right? Loneliness is horrible, and it's an epidemic in this country, and it's gotten much worse since remote work became more prominent. Remote work is extremely convenient. 7% of the population is much happier with remote work because they're mostly introverted, but for the rest of us, it's terrible. No, I get it. It's very convenient. It's good to have the option, et cetera, et cetera. But this whole remote work thing with the efficiency is going to have, it's really going to be, it's a mental health snowball, avalanche coming toward us, and we don't quite see the problems yet that we're going to be seeing in a couple of years.
I think we're all pretty happy. And I think we need to be happy and grateful about being happy.
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of the things.
And I never understand, depression is easy to write. It's like you have everything going from you. Why are you? Because there's nothing you can do. It needs to be chemically mediated for people that have that horrible affliction, right?
Well, there's a problem too.
It can be drugs, it can be therapy, but it's out of your control. Yeah. So no matter what you do, some people are going to have...
Arthur, you got happier when you left your CEO position at AEI.
Right.
Can you do a top position like that, a CEO position, and still be happy?
You have to be unbelievably self-aware of what you're doing. So I work a lot now. I mean, my last book was called From Strength to Strength, which is about how, strivers, they tend to beat themselves up and do all kinds of negative things in their own lives, mostly because they self-objectify, because they have a success addiction. Workaholism is downstream from success addiction. When you see yourself as a cardboard cutout. We go much farther than that in this book about actually how to not objectify yourself anymore and see yourself as a full human being. Here's the big problem for a lot of people who watch the best show on TV, which is Squawk Box.
God bless you. Save that tape.
No, I'm really happy.
Say it loud and proud.
There you go.
You went on a lot of shows this week, and you can say that
I love
with
this show.
authority.
He said that on every show.
This is the show I have done the most
You have,
for the
yeah.
past 15 years. Consistently, because I love it. It's great. And here's the big problem with a lot of people who watch this show. Because after I do the show, I always get tons of email from strivers, from CEOs, from top leaders. Here's the biggest problem that they have, and I've seen it again and again in my research. I was interviewing a woman who runs a big financial firm. Lots of money, super successful. She says, I'm not happy. People talk to me like I'm a psychiatrist. I say, why are you not happy? She said, well, it's like my husband and I were roommates. And my adult kids, she's my age, late 50s. We're cordial, my health isn't as good as it used to be. My decision making isn't as crisp. I'm burned out, and all I do is work. What do I do, professor? And I'm like, you don't need a Harvard professor to tell you what to do. Go away with your husband. Get to know your kids. Take a souvenir in your famous firm and stuff. What's wrong with you? And she said, I know what's wrong with me. I know exactly what I have to do. But I've always made the decision to be special rather than happy. Boom. And, but that was like a knife to the heart for me. Yeah. Because, I did that for years. I worked that 14th hour instead of going home for the first hour with my kids. And you know what they did? They grew up. Yeah. They didn't wait for me, is
Definitely,
the problem.
I think
now my
family's got a lot to do with it.
I'm not making that mistake again.
That's why loneliness is so sad. I really do think we should have
like
couches when you come on.
Yeah.
Because I felt like leaning back a couple of times.
This is like a Cat Stevens song at the end.
Well, for happiness, I have 2 words.
Oh, that's true.
2 words for happiness.
Tell me your 2 rules.
2 words.
2 words.
Taco Bell.
There you go.
Okay.
I got 5 words. Happiness is love, full stop.
Yep,
Yes.
that's right. Love
that.
is the answer to everything. Why we're here, what's worth living for, what's worth dying for,
right.
what is God, what is...
But there's
love
some
is the
external validation in love.
Yeah.
That's the conundrum.
I love you, and I love you, and God, I love you.
I know, I love you
We're all happier just having you here, Arthur.
Thank you.
His new book, Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier, co-authored with Oprah Winfrey. And it's selling a lot, so that's another reason he's happy. And then in the next hour, lawmakers respond